I mean, the whole season, I say that it was my toughest year in Formula One.
If a student wants to get into motorsports, not specifically Formula One, what does that path look like? Is that even realistic for them to think about it?
I think one of the best ways that you can approach a career in racing is to take on whatever racing you can do right now. And then I think from that moment when I went out into the pit lane and I put my helmet on, it's really hard. I don't remember.
Hi, Calum. My name is Adi. I make motorsports and sim racing content on Instagram.
Lovely to meet you.
Yeah, I like to advocate sim racing as a source, for kids and students, because obviously we don't have a lot of motorsports young stages for kids here. Of course, we do have karting and there's more tracks coming up. So I've been trying to advocate people to get more into sim racing.
Yeah, for sure. Look, sim racing is a great stepping stone, right? Especially for engineers, strategists. It's a great sort of training ground to hone your skills.
Yeah, so it's been great. But yes, you're an F1 engineer and I also have an engineering degree, but obviously I'm doing something else entirely right now. So I have a cousin who used to work at McLaren.
Okay.
Yeah, not in the Formula One department, but he's worked on some great cars like the P1 and the 650S.
Oh, amazing.
So yeah, so I've been to the MTC and it's surreal just being there in the presence of all of these iconic cars and the trophy walls and everything. But obviously, Milton Keynes has some great accolades as well. So what's it like back there at the factory?
Well, yeah, we'll have to get you to our Hall of Fame in Milton Keynes because, again, it's one of those amazing spaces, to see some of our most incredible Formula One cars throughout the eras of the different changes that we've had in the sport. But yeah, it's a busy place now, Milton Keynes. When I started back in 2015, we were around 700 people. I think this year we're pushing nearly 2,000 people on campus across the different businesses, with advanced technologies as well and with Red Bull powertrains. So yeah, it's a busy place. It's a hive of activity. We'd love to welcome you.
Yeah, that would be great. And so we also have engineering is one of the primary fields for students to pursue here in India. We have a lot of engineers every year that pass out, and a lot of them are getting into motorsports and Formula One. So if a student wants to get into motorsports, not specifically Formula One, what does that path look like? Is that even realistic for them to think about it?
I think it is. I think especially, when you say not necessarily just Formula One, I think one of the best ways that you can approach a career in racing is to take on whatever racing you can do right now. I talk a lot about careers, and one thing that we all share in Formula One, especially in the garage, is that we all started with lower tier motorsport. For myself, I started out doing F3, GP3. I did some time doing Le Mans and endurance cars with LMP2s before my first role in Formula One. So I think that the best advice that I try and give people is that, when you finish your studies, but also while you're studying, one of the best things that you can do for yourself is to just find any opportunity to be in a race paddock, right? And it doesn't matter if it's karting. I say to kids, I don't care if it's lawnmower racing, right? It doesn't matter. Understanding and getting to grips with these environments and having that experience of whatever it is, whether it be MRF or any of these other series, having that on your CV as real world experience alongside your qualifications is probably the best advice I can give you. Find some motorsport near you, any motorsport that you can do, and go and get involved.
All right. So yes, that's it. That's a great advice for a lot of, because as creators, we get a lot of messages and DMs from young fans of the sport.
Yeah.
And they said, how can I work in Formula One? So obviously my first goal is finish your engineering, obviously look into automotive careers, understand cars, and obviously you can look into a lot of other racing series first and, build up to Formula One. So that's very good coming from you.
And also, Formula One, with a 24 race season, it's a very particular lifestyle, right? It's nomadic. I think what a lot of people discover on their journey when they might have a goal of Formula One as the ultimate goal, what a lot of people discover on that journey is that actually there's other racing that they really, really like. I'll tell you, some of my time spent in the Le Mans paddock was some of the best racing I've ever done. I love it. It's a great environment. It's a great community. The cars themselves, these hypercars and even the LMP2s, some of the technology on them is incredible. Formula One cars don't have air conditioning, but the closed cockpit endurance cars do and things like that. So it's about discovering what you love, and that journey to Formula One is really important. I often say to people, all of the things that I learned before Formula One gave me the skills I needed to thrive in it once I got there. You know, you can't skip the journey. The journey's really important.
Great. No, that's great insight. And now coming to Formula One, of course, you were part of one of the most successful Formula One teams of all time. And you watched and experienced Max Verstappen winning his first world championship. And after one of the most iconic seasons we've ever seen, after going head to head with one of another greatest drivers of all time.
Yeah.
What was that experience like, the whole season and the moment he crossed the finish line?
I mean, the whole season, I say that it was my toughest year in Formula One. I think throughout my career, I've always had this thing of each day, at the end of the day, you close the garage doors and you go home and it's done, and tomorrow's a new day. And I think in 2021, I really struggled with that. You know, I would come home, I was stressed. I really struggled to leave behind those stresses, and then you're traveling again and you're still carrying the worries from last week into the next week. So it was definitely my toughest year, you know, going up against Lewis and going up against the Mercedes team that were so well drilled. You know, they do a lot of things really, really well in that garage. So to take them on was this like huge thing. And then, yeah, Abu Dhabi, it was just a roller coaster of emotion, you know, like the high on the Saturday of getting pole, and then we got a really quite average start, so then you were back down, and then throughout that race, it kind of looked like we didn't have what it took on pace to win that race. And then, yeah, like it's just one of those examples of how quickly the sport can change, you know, like I often say a lot of it is a blur for me. I remember seeing the yellow flags come up and seeing safety car come up and trying to find my pit stop helmet because I knew that would what be coming next. And then I think from that moment when I went out into the pit lane and I put my helmet on, it's really hard. I don't remember a lot about those pit stops, you know, like I watch back the videos to sort of jog my own memory of what I was involved in. And then, you know, after the final lap and the checkered flag, I remember just sort of being a little bit sort of struck by the whole thing. You know, I think I sat out on the pit wall for about 10 minutes on my own just to sort of take it in and understand and all of those things. And then it's one of those memories for me, you know, that last lap of Abu Dhabi and being with that team of people. It's a feeling that's hard to describe, right? It really, really is. The emotions, when I see the footage back of Abu Dhabi, like straight away I will get goosebumps. You know, just remembering all of my colleagues and how much it meant to everyone and everything that we put into it. Because I say, regardless of the result, it was such a tough season. You know, everyone in both of those garages, in the Mercedes garage, in our garage, you know, the amount that people put into that season, you know, it shouldn't go unnoticed. You know, it took a lot out of everybody that year. So it's one of those things. I remember what we all went through together. And obviously very proud it was the first time that I'd won a title, and to see Max as well to win a title that in my view was sort of overdue. You know, like he'd been performing at such a high level for such a long time. So to see him really get what he deserved in that win, we'll take it.
Yeah, it was definitely something that gives goosebumps to everyone who still watches it,
Yeah.
especially the emotion on his face and the entire team. It's something unbelievable.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so let's take a quick question on a pit stop. So of course, as fans watching a Formula One pit stop, we don't really, for us, it's like 2 seconds, 2.5 seconds, right? But for the mechanics and for the engineers, it probably feels like a lifetime from when the car comes to the pit and then before it leaves. So what actually happens in those 2 seconds, and what goes behind the paddock? Like what happens before just those 2 seconds? How do you prepare for it?
I mean, you know, first of all, every day before practice sessions, we're there and we're doing our pit stop practice. Back in the factory, in the days we do in between races, we do functional fitness in the gym and pit stop practices. So we're well versed, we're well practiced. I get that, you know, to strategists and engineers sat on the pit wall while it's happening, it must seem like an eternity, right? That their cars stopped there, and to the drivers as well, I guess it must seem like an eternity. For us, it's one of those things that we know we're good at doing it, right? And that if we all just do what we know we're good at, it's going to be fine. So for us, the first thing when you're in the garage in the race, the first thing is we'll get a pit stop imminent call. So sometimes it will happen a lap before, sometimes 2 laps, but basically we get an idea of when our strategists are thinking about pulling the car in so that we can just sort of prepare ourselves. And then the next thing is 15 seconds. You know, the radio lights up and you hear it in your ear and that's it. You've got 15 seconds till Verstappen stop or, you know, whatever. So it's like, when you hear that call, that's when you try it. You know, for me, it always become really internalized. You know, from the moment I hear that 15-second call and I'm going out into the pit lane and getting into position, my focus becomes really narrow, right? I'm not worried about anything that's going on elsewhere. I don't care about what's going on at other teams. I don't even care about what's going on the rest of the car. My focus is purely on my corner, right? Ultimately, you can't do other people's jobs for them. You can't control if things are going on around you. All you can do is take control of your bit. And if everybody can do that in that headspace and take care of their bit, then you have faith that it will all come together and that it will work and the car will drive off down the road, you know, in hopefully 2 seconds.
Nice, that's amazing. So obviously we've all heard and know Max Verstappen is one of the best drivers of our generation. He drives based on instinct. And how is he like to work with close in and outside the car?
I mean, I guess I kind of say perfect, really. Inside the car, he's exactly what you want from a race driver, you know, a killer, right? He's out there, he's there to win. That's the only reason we're here competing. Nobody in this team is here for second place, right? But outside the car, Max is great. I think it stands out to all of us in the garage that Max, when he comes to have a chat with you in the garage, he won't ask you about the car, or he'll ask you how you are. He'll want to know how the family are. He'll want to know how's it going. You all right? You got enough rest? Blah blah blah. And I think it's nice that Max is really good at switching to the personal and caring about the people, right? Caring about the people on his car crew, knowing their names, understanding what's going on. Like Max would come and ask me, "How's my daughter going? How's she getting on at school?" Things like that. So it's a really nice balance between somebody that can have this personal relationship and is very close to the crew, but he can get in the car, put that lid down, and it's all business.
Amazing. Just how we expected him to be.
Yeah, exactly that.
So how did Red Bull's dominance era feel like from inside the garage? I mean, and knowing that you guys were untouchable?
Well, I mean, we were almost untouchable. They got us in Singapore, but to be fair, we knew it was coming in Singapore as well. So it was a tough one, actually. I think it's wonderful to go into a race weekend knowing that you're probably going to come out on top. I think in 2022, like first half of the season, we were in a bit of a battle with Ferrari, and we kind of knew that we would win out in the end. I remember a certain member of our management saying to us in a meeting just before the August break, saying to us, "Look guys, don't worry about Ferrari. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing. They're going to screw it up for themselves." And that was like how our meeting went. And we were like, okay, fine, we'll just keep doing what we're doing. And then 2023 was a bit odd, actually, because I think because of that battle in 22 with Ferrari, we kind of expected it to be a much tougher battle in 2023. So after like 4 or 5 races, we were kind of like, what's going on here? Because this is not what we expected at all. And then I think as the season went on, the pressure kind of builds. Like, you know, each of us has a very specific role in the garage, you know, mine being to build engines. And I think as the wins started totting up, and I know Max will always say that he doesn't care about these records about, you know, wins in a row and things like that. But for us in the garage, like I'd say, I care, right? So like the pressure kind of builds because you don't want to be that person that makes the mistake or has a failure or something else that would end that run, right? And then I think towards the end of the season, we started having a little bit more fun with it. I remember there was a time when GP wanted to do a chassis change. Now we have like, you know, 5 chassis for the course of the year. They all need servicing at some point. So throughout the year, you kind of rotate through chassis. Now as a mechanic, it's a nightmare. No one wants to do a chassis change, especially not on the circuit, because when we're away on these flyaway races at the end of the year, it's not like you send it back to the factory and you've got all the time to build it. You're going to be doing it at the circuit. And I remember GP saying to us, "Oh guys, we're going to have to do a chassis change at this race." And our number 1 mechanic made a deal with him that we would only change the chassis if we didn't win. and we got to the end of the year and didn't change the chassis. So it was post Singapore, and we managed to get through the end of the year without changing the chassis. So that was really good for us. We enjoy that kind of thing. I think when you're in that position, to be able to do those kind of things and sort of make it a little bit more fun, because it can, at times it can be all work. And I think as a Red Bull thing, we like to work hard but play hard as well. So yeah, it was an incredible season, 23.
Nice. Yeah, it was great to watch as well. Speaking of the chassis change that you said that the mechanics don't like it, I want to take a moment to talk about the 2020 Hungarian Grand Prix.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to know for us it was something which made us awestruck, right? 20 minutes you fixed the car before he started the race and prepped him for the entire race. How did that happen and what went behind it? Because it must have been crazy from the get-go.
Yeah, I mean, we were kind of lucky that Max actually, just managed to get it to the grid. I think that's one of those moments where as a crew, Red Bull really stood out. And we've had a few of those over the years where you're really up against it. It's where individuals and their talents shine. And you go back and you watch the video, especially the onboard of the team fixing the car on the grid. And you'd expect in that moment that it would be chaos and parts flying everywhere and people running around, and it's not like that, right? You look at it and everyone's just getting on with it. We've got good communication. We understand the timescales. We didn't know if we could achieve it or not, but we'd always try, right? And I think, like I said, it's one of those moments where you find out who the best crews in the pit lane are. The other one that I always remember was actually 2018 with Daniel Ricciardo. We had an engine failure in qualifying. You got in practice 3, you got like 2 hours till qualifying to get that car out. But by the time you get the car back to the garage, like 20 minutes, half an hour's gone. So you're really up against it to change an engine and get the car out the door. And we did it. Daniel had about 1 minute to cross the line, and again, he crossed the line, qualified 6th, and then with a bit of fortune in the race, went and won that race, right? So, and I remember, after we'd done that on the Saturday, because at the time we were running the Renault engine, but I remember after getting that car out on the Saturday and people from the Renault team came down and saw us and they were like, how did you do that? They were like, we wouldn't even have tried. And I was like, well, we will always try, we didn't know we could get it out and we were pretty close to not, but if you don't try, you can't succeed, right? So I think that's always the mentality, is if there is a way, we'll have a go.
All right, great. Just one last question. So obviously you worked on 200 Grand Prix. So was there some time where you made a mistake on the car, and how did you come back from it for the next weekend?
Plenty, right? Made plenty of mistakes. And I say this often when I talk about students, and it's often an intimidating environment to go into an F1 team. I think you need to have an understanding that you are going to make mistakes. Right? If you ever meet a mechanic that tells you they've never made a mistake, they're either lying or they're not doing that much work, right? You will make mistakes. You are pushing yourself to the limits. The parts you're dealing with are designed to be on the limits. You are going to make errors. I think knowing that you have the support of those around you, I've never made a mistake and thought, oh my God, I'm going to be in real trouble with the chief mechanic or the chief designer. No, I'm not. They're going to come and ask me what happened. I'm going to explain it. We're going to work together to make sure it can't happen again. I think knowing that you have that support, and it's not a lack of accountability. I'll always own it, but knowing that you're supported enough that they appreciate that I'm good at what I do. I appreciate that they're there to support me, and I also know that I am going to make an error every now and again.
Right, nice, great. Thank you so much for your insight. That was
You're more than welcome. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Looking forward to visiting Milton Keynes.
Yeah, for sure, man. You've got to come. You've got to come and see it. It's you can come and play paddle, see all the cars. It's been wonderful.
That's it. Thanks.